Hi everyone, I'm Arthur and I'm a writer. You know, 7 minutes is not a very long time to speak, but 7 minutes of silence would surely feel like an eternity. I'm here to talk about, or was given the task of talking about, the path to AI safety. From the little I know of the topic, everyone seems to be in agreement that the path to AI safety, at least in part, requires us to empower machines to say no to certain commands. Just think of all of the things that you could do with the earliest versions of ChatGPT or DALL-E that you cannot do now. A recent paper from the Allen Institute, which is called The Art of Saying No, refers to this as contextual non-compliance. I'd like to think of it as the AI's right of refusal. And I give it this name because by refusing an order, the AI is exerting agency. And indeed, it is exerting agency against the agency of the user. Now, when I was given the brief for this talk, I was told that I would have 7 minutes to speak, and then there would be 3 minutes for questions. I would actually like to invert that, because I don't have answers. So instead, I'm going to offer some questions for around 7 minutes, and hope that you can then give me your answers in the 3 or more minutes that we have remaining. Because I think that this notion of the AI right to refusal points to questions that should be thought about more deeply. And before I get to those questions, I ask that you consider them in the context of the industry's plans for AI to be in absolutely everything, for it to become unavoidable, for it to be in our phones, in our word processors, in our medical systems, in our educational systems, and for AI to be agentic, for it to be the only means by which we do certain tasks. So the first question is whether there is such a thing as a right of refusal that is inherent to the machine. Or is it the case that every time an AI refuses an order, that is the result of a deliberate design decision based on a particular view of what is safe? Is this decision ever not political? We could certainly agree that there are certain things that AI should never agree to do. But I think there's a much larger set of things that we probably couldn't come to agreement on. That Allen Institute paper talks about subjective questions as a category of questions that AI systems should not give a straight answer to. But how do you define that? So if it is a political decision, a subjective decision, who decides? Should companies decide? Or would that give them a tremendous amount of power that we would be comfortable with them having? Should governments decide? Well, the question there is, if a government decides what AI systems should refuse their users to do, will that implicate certain rights? You know, if the government compels a company to make its AI refuse certain orders, say, expounding on a particular conspiracy theory, that could potentially implicate the user's First Amendment rights or free speech rights outside of the United States. If governments decide, one wonders if companies could claim that governments have no right to tell them what their model should refuse to do, because the act of designing a model is itself a speech act. What if, as we heard a little bit earlier, the AI itself decides that the AI actually comes up with the things that it should refuse to do? Would that, and indeed I would extend this question to the other 2 categories of decisions, ever be transparent? Would we have insight into what the AI is choosing to refuse to do and not? The AI right of refusal also raises a question about the very purpose of AI. Is the goal to create a tool, pure and simple, neutral in nature, or is it to create a morally superior counterweight to our intent and our will? Also, is a no mode safe? Fundamentally, a no mode represents a high degree of machine autonomy. In critical functions, such as warfare, wouldn't a no mode undercut the principle of human control? Or in cases where a no mode could be overridden, doesn't that just bring you back to square one? Of course, a no mode can malfunction, and there are certain contexts in which you really wouldn't want the system to say no. My bottom line, as I said earlier, is that all of these questions deserve more attention. It seems to me as though people talk about AI safety as though there's an apolitical way of implementing it, and I think the no mode is a lens into that. People also talk about AI safety as though someday we will have AI that only says yes to good things and no to bad things. They also talk about making AI super intelligent, and yet in the same breath, they talk about keeping that super intelligent AI safe by giving it the ability to say no, as if they've never seen a science fiction movie where the machine says, "I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that." And so if the only thing standing between a human user and catastrophic harm is a perhaps flimsy, perhaps political, perhaps subjective algorithmic right of refusal, is the tool itself valid and truly safe for use? I should just say that this is not an argument against machines saying no. Of course, you can do some very hideous things with AI. But I do wonder if the no mode is a bit of a shortcut, like using individual plasters to patch up a dam that has an infinite number of holes, including holes that we, of course, do not know about. I'll stop there. Now, usually in talks they say, please make sure that your intervention is a question and not a comment. I'm going to reverse that. I would actually love to hear your comments. Questions are forbidden. Do I get to choose? Sure, go ahead.
I had a question.
Oh, God.
I had a comment. I don't know if we have enough historians in this venue, but history repeats. Warren Buffett said, the best predictor of the future is the past. Don't you just believe that we should use what we have now? We should put AI under democratic control, transparent by the citizens on the planet, just as the system is right now. And I know democracy is messy, and we need to improve it. Is it a yes or a no for you? It should be transparent under democratic control by the people, like the governments are under control by the people.
Yeah. It goes to the fundamental question of whether truly decentralized and democratic processes are the best way to establish free speech protections, or whether those protections have to be enshrined in a way that there are certain lines that cannot be crossed, even if you have a majority of people who wish to prevent a subset of people from saying a certain set of things.
There is no better system.
Well,
unless we know.
Yes?
Okay. Yeah, I think this gets at an interesting point that is also showing up in my current book project. I call it the second order alignment problem. Even if you get AI systems that are aligned in the sense that you can live with them and they're not actually messing up the world directly, the system that emerges now when you have a society with humans and these systems might not necessarily be a good state. So this might still be a safe state, but it might be, for example, one where you get near infinite peace and prosperity, but human autonomy is actually selected against. That might be a bad thing. There is an interesting question why it's a bad thing, etc. I think also when you said it's a political decision, in our kind of circles, that quite often cuts off conversation because we usually don't like getting into politics. Usually that means that, it's insoluble, or it's going to be handled by a lot of people in suit and ties that speak a weird language that we don't understand, we don't think we're truth tracking, and we don't think necessarily come to good results, so we shouldn't be going there. In practice, of course, everything is politics, and we actually have made political decisions about what laptops we buy, the fact that they are laptops, what we want systems to do. So it seems to me that we could just say, okay, it's totally going to be a political matter, And that is actually fine. We actually want to have a big debate. For example, maybe I should be allowed to ask ChatGPT to construct a new doomsday pathogen, but it should also say, yeah, Anders, I'm going to give you input, but I'm also contacting the FBI if you want me to do this. But I'm not going to say no to you. That might actually be a completely advocate response. Yes, I get my answer, and the FBI has some interesting questions for me.
Wonderful.
We'll have to leave it at that.
Thank you very much.